In this tutorial, we're going to show you how you can create the model of the lioness that you can see on screen. We're going to start with some vectors that have been edited from some clip art kindly supplied to us from the website www.vectorart.com. The vectors have been edited and prepared for modelling, and we're going to focus on the modelling tools. We're going to work our way through using the create shape function to make all of the basic shapes for our lioness, and then we're going to finish off using the smoothing and the very powerful sculpting tools that are available in the software. So let's just go to File, Close. So we're going to start by opening an existing file. So from the Lioness project folder, we're going to open up the Lioness vectors and we'll open that up. So here we have a set of vectors that we edited using the drawing tools in the software. And we're going to focus this session purely on modelling the shapes from vectors to build up a 3D relief model. Now, if you want to learn more about drawing vectors, then please refer to the many drawing tutorials that we have available. So if we take a look at the top here, you'll see that our vectors are organised onto layers. We've got 5 different layers here, and if we just switch off the visibility of the head layer, you'll see that the head is now gone away in the 2D view, and if we switch off the visibility of the front leg, you'll see how all of these layers are built with the vectors that are on them. Okay, so we're just going to have the visibility of the tail layer visible. We're just going to click on that to make that the active layer. Then we can just click into the white space. And so the way that we're going to model all of the parts is on a per layer basis. So we're going to start by looking at the tail. So to access our modelling tools, we need to go into the modelling tab. Okay, so we just want to start by organising our components into different levels. So we're just going to right click, we're going to rename this level, and we're simply just going to call this one tail, like so, as the component that I'm about to create is going to be the tail. So we're just keeping everything organised from the get-go. So let's go ahead and tile our windows vertically so we can see the 2D view on the left and the 3D view on the right hand side. Now all of the shapes that we're going to create in this session, we're going to look at using the create shape tool. So let's just click on that to open up that form. So the create shape tool enables us to specify simple profiles along with a variety of ways in order for us to control the height of the region of the closed vector that we've got selected. So in this case, we just need to simply select our vector, and then we need to apply a profile along with a height setting. Now, as we're working with natural forms, we're actually going to go with this curved profile here. Okay, we'll just set that to no limit, and then we can give that component a name. So we'll just simply call this one tail, as that's what it is, and then we can press apply. We can take a look at that. We can see what it looks like in the 3D view. Okay, so that's actually quite flat there. So what we could do is we could look at giving that an exact height in this instance. So we could use the slider here, okay, and we can just work our way up. We could also look at adjusting the angle. So let's just increase that to around 80. If we wanted to be precise, we could just enter in that value in there and then just press space to accept that. Okay, and then we could look at increasing the actual height as well. Let's make that 0.2, space to enter that in. Okay, and we can see we've got some nice definition in there. I like how that looks, so I'm happy with that. So we'll just go ahead and close out, and we can see we've got the component here, we've got a grayscale here in the 2D view, and we have the component within our component tree there. So now we're ready to move on to the next part. So we're just going to switch off the tail layer, and you'll notice that our grayscale has disappeared. However, we can still see the component here in the 3D view, and that's because anything that we see in the 3D view is actually managed by the properties of our component tree. and 2D grayscales is managed by the properties of our layers. Okay, so we're going to switch on the back leg layer. We're going to click on that to make that the active layer, and then in our component tree we're going to right click on the tail level and we're going to insert a new level. We're going to right click, we're going to rename that, and we're going to call this one back leg in there, and then we can just click out, and then that's done that there for us. Okay, and so any components that we create now will be added to the back leg level as it's the active level. We can tell because the text here is in bold. Okay, so we're just going to take this outer leg and we're going to go into the Create Shape tool. Okay, so the nice thing about the Create Shape tool is it remembers the settings that you used last time. So we can we've got a rough gauge to go by. So here we're just going to give this a name and we're going to call this one back leg. And then what we could do is we could simply go ahead and press apply to take a look at that, kind of like the shape that we've got there. So we'll just close out here. So taking a look at what we can see here in the 3D view, if we just look in the ISO view and if we just zoom in ever so slightly, we can see that we've got the part that we've just made, and as I mentioned, I do like the heights that we've got there. However, where the two components overlap, we can see that we have this rather displeasing bald on the top, and this is all down to the combine modes that we've set in our component tree. So the way our component tree is organised has a direct effect on the way that the composite model looks in the 3D view. The component tree works bottom to top, so we started with the tail level that houses the tail component. Now this level is set to add, and so it's simply adding on top of the modelling plane, which is at 0. Then we introduce the back leg level, which houses the back leg component. Now this level is also set to add, and so anything in this level is adding on top of the tail level and component. So to correct this, we need to change the combine mode of the back leg level to merge so that it blends in with the level below it. So let's set the combine mode of the level to merge. So we just right click on that level, go to combine mode and set that to merge. Okay, and you can see now that's a lot better. It's blending in there. So the back leg level is merging in with the level below it. And that's why we're getting this nice transition here. Okay, so we're going to take this vector here, we're going to hold down shift, and we're also going to select this vector here. We're going to look at creating the detail for the back leg. So again, with those vectors selected, let's go into the create shape form. Okay, so with these vectors selected, and we're going to use a curved profile, we're going to look at just applying this as it is, just to take a look there. Okay, so that's at 0.2, 80 degrees there. It's not too bad, however, I think it's a little bit too strong, so we could look at just decreasing that ever so slightly. So we'll just put that down to 0.15 there, and then press space to enter that in, and that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. So we can just give that a name, so we'll just call this one back leg detail, and then we can simply press apply and then close out. Okay, so just to go over the component tree again, so what we're seeing here is this detail adding on top of the back leg component, so that's adding on top of that component there, where everything is within a level that's currently set to merge and it's blending in with the tail level, and so we're getting a nice transition there. So let's just put that back in the Z view, and now we're going to look at the next part. So in our layers bar here, just going to switch off the visibility of the back leg layer, switch on the visibility of the body layer, make that the active layer. And then in our component tree, we're going to right click, insert a new level, right click on that level, rename that one, and we're going to call this one body, and then we're also going to set the combine mode of this to merge so that it merges in with the rest of our current composite model. So here we're going to take that vector and we're going to go into the Create Shape tool. Okay, so again, curve profile, 80 degrees, and then we could just give that a name. So we're just going to call this one Body Base, and then press apply just to see how that looks. Okay, so at 0.15, I guess a little bit too shallow, so we might look at increasing that. So let's make that 0.2 in this case, and then just apply that. Okay, so that's looking a lot better there. So what we can do then is we could just go ahead and start a new component. Then we're going to take this vector here. Okay, so this time we're going to look at curved profile. Again, let's go with 80 degrees. We're just going to reduce the height here. So let's just make that 0.15 in this instance, and then go ahead and press spacebar, and we'll apply that. Okay, so you can see that there, it's looking pretty good. So here we can just give this one a name. We'll just call that one Body Detail, and then we can simply apply that and then close out. And so again, we can quickly take a look what's going on here. So we've got the body level, which is blending in or merging in with the back leg level, which is also merging in with the tail level. So we're getting a nice blend between all of those components. But then in terms of the actual level itself, we've got this body detail adding on top of the body base to give us that extra definition. Okay, so let's go into our layers bar, switch off body, switch on front leg, make the front leg the active layer, and then we're going to right click on that level. We're going to insert a new level, rename that level, and we're going to call this one front leg in there, set the combine mode of this to merge, and then we'll take that vector there into the Create Shape tool, go to the curve profile, 80 degrees, and then we're just going to scale that. Let's just see how it is at 0.15. Okay, so it's a little bit shallow, so let's just increase that to 0.2. Press spacebar to accept that. Okay, so that's much better there, so I'm happy with that. And then what we could do is just give that a name. So we're just going to call this one Front Leg Base, and then apply that, and we're going to start a new component. We're just going to take these vectors here. Okay, so again, we're going to go with a curve profile. This time we're just going to decrease this to 0.15 in this case, and then we're just going to press apply to check that out. Okay, so that's the detail there. I'm happy with that. Although there are some bits that actually look quite bulbous, so let's just reduce that down a little. So we'll try 0.11, space to enter that in. You can see it's just knocked that off ever so slightly. It looks a lot better there. And then we can just call this one front leg detail, so front leg and detail in there. Okay, missed the T there, so we'll just put the T in there, and then go ahead and press apply, and then we can close out here. Okay, so onto the final layer. So switch that off, switch on the head, make that the active layer, and then insert a new level, rename that level, call this one head, and then we'll give that a combine mode that's set to merge. So let's take this vector here into the Create Shape tool, curve profile, 80 degrees, and we're just going to look at scaling this to 0.2 in this case, and then we can give that a name. We'll call that one head base, and then press apply to take a look at that. Okay, so that's not too bad. So now we can go and start a new component. We're just going to take these vectors here. We're just going to reduce the scale for the height here. So let's just try 0.1 in this instance and press apply. Okay, so looking at that, it's fairly bulbous, so we might need to go a little bit less. So we'll try 0.6 in there, space to accept that, and that's updated, and that actually looks a lot better, so I'm happy with that. So we'll just call this one head detail, and then we can simply press apply, and then we can close out there. So let's just maximize the 3D view here. We're just going to look at making some final adjustments here. So we'd like to make the back leg a little bit more prominent, just so it sticks up a little bit more. And the same applies to the front leg as well. So we want to tilt them both up. So we're going to make the adjustments here in the 3D view. So we're just going to right click on this area here, and you'll see that the software will display all of the components under the cursor there. So we're going to select the back leg here, and we're just going to click on that, and that's going to highlight our component, and then we're going to select it again to put it into transform mode, and then press in on this blue square. That will open up our mini component properties form, and here we can adjust the height, we can add base heights, we can add fades, and we can add tilts. So what we want to do is we just want to tilt the leg in this direction here. So we're going to use the tilt option. We're going to set that. So we're going to click here. So you can see the anchor has a number 1 next to it. That's where we specify our first anchor point. So we're going to click that there. You'll see now we've got a number 2 displayed. So we're going to click our second point here. So in the direction that we'd like to tilt that, we're going to click that in place there. Okay, so I've just moved the view there. So if you just put that back in the Z view, and then what we can do is we can then look at increasing the tilt here. So we can use the slider and we can just nudge that up, and you can see what that does. And if we move that down, we can take a look at how that looks. Okay, so that's a little bit too high. You can see the vertical wall there. So we're just going to look at decreasing that. So let's just try to make that a little bit less. So we'll try 1.2 space to enter that in. That looks pretty good. I'm okay with that. So let's go over and put that in Z, and then we'll right click over here, and we're going to select the front leg base. Okay, and we're going to tilt this one also. So we're going to tilt that. We're going to set the anchor point from here to over here, and then we're just going to increase the angle. So let's just nudge that up. Let's try 1 degree, and then we'll just take a look at that. That looks all right. So I'm happy with that. So we'll just close out there, put that in Z. We'll just click out to deselect that selection there. And so you could continue to edit the shapes at this stage if you needed to. In this case, we can move on. Now, say that you have a copy of this project in this state, we're actually going to save this file. So we'll go to File, Save As, and then in the project folder, we're going to call this one Basic Model, 3D Modeling. Save that out, and you can access that from there. Now we're going to start sculpting. So if you wanted to, you could load this basic model file into the software to follow along. Now this is an important transitional stage because we're going to go from being able to work with individual components where we can select them, we can edit them just like we did, to then needing to join the components together so that they act as a single object that will allow me to work with them much more organically. And so to do this, I want to make a brand new component based on what we can see here in the 3D. And that way I still have access to all of the original parts that we built up to make the model that we can see here. So let's go and create a new level. So we're going to right click on the head level, insert a new level. Okay, and we're going to right click on level 1, rename that, and we're going to call this one the combined model. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to, with our level highlighted, it's the active level there, we're going to come over to this tool here where we can create a component from a visible model. And what that will do is it will basically create one single component that represents our composite model here. So we're going to click on that. We can see we've got a copy of visible model, and now if I just undraw the visibility of all of the individual parts, you can see we've just got one single model there, and we're going to use this to start sculpting the model up. Okay, so we're just going to rename this component. So we're just going to rename that and we're going to call that one Lioness to edit. Okay, so what we want to do first is we want to look at applying a general smooth over the entire lioness, just to blend out some of the sharp edges that we have in the model. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go in with the sculpting tools and be much more specific about our edits. So with that component selected, let's go into the smooth filter. So that's this icon over here. So here we can use the slider to set the amount of smoothness we want to apply to our model. So if we just go somewhere around here, that doesn't look too bad. It's also worth noting that I do have preserve transparency switched on, and the reason that I have that on is so that when we apply this smooth over, we don't want the model to blend into the modeling plane. And so we're just restricting it to the actual component itself. Okay, so I'm happy with the smooth there, so we're just going to go ahead and press OK. So now we're ready to finish the lioness using the sculpting tools. So you simply select the component that you wish to sculpt and then go into the Sculpt Visible Model tool, and that will put your component into sculpt mode. So we're going to briefly talk our way through the form to begin with. So at the top here we have the tools section. This is where we have 5 ways that we can interact with the model, and we also have the option to adjust the view. Next, we have the option to use a component brush, and this is where you can export any component you create as a custom brush for use with the deposit and remove tools. Now, we're not going to cover this option in this video, however we do have a dedicated tutorial that covers this option in great detail, and you can find the custom brush sculpting tutorial in the related videos section for this tutorial. Here we have 3 sliders to adjust the diameter, the strength and the smoothness on whatever tool we have selected. Here we have the option to preserve the transparency of the model, and this is the same as what I mentioned earlier in the smooth tool. So with this checked, we're only applying changes to the model itself, and with this option unchecked, we can actually blend the model into the modeling plane. Then we have the option to show the grayscale background, which is very useful if you want to see other components in your job that aren't currently a part of your sculpting session. These components will be greyed out here in the 3D view to give you an indication of where they are. Then we have sculpt mode. In this example, we're just going to use normal, which will allow the brush to average the high and low points as I drag the brush along the model. Here we have the option to overlay an image. So if I had modelled the lioness from an image where I traced the vectors around the image and then I created the components from those vectors, at this stage in the sculpt mode I could opt to switch on the bitmap, and that would be overlaid onto my model, which makes it easy for me to sculpt my model whilst looking at the image directly on top of the component. Now, as I don't have a bitmap, this option is greyed out. Finally, at the bottom, we have the option to add in a preset, which allows me to save brush settings, and we'll come back to this later on. So we're going to start by smoothing the tail with the back leg, okay? And we can see when I bring my cursor over into the 3D view, I have this very large circle and a crosshair, and this represents the size of my brush. Okay, so we can look at reducing that. So we're going to take the diameter down to around 90. We're also going to bring the strength of our brush down to around 40, and then we'll just keep the smoothness set at 70 there. Okay, and at the moment you can see I am moving my cursor along the lioness model and nothing is happening, and that's because I'm not clicking. In order to activate the brush, you must press down the left mouse key. Okay, so when I click, you can see in the space here the colour is much brighter, and that's because I'm activating that. And so when I come over into my model, you can see straight away we're just making some changes there, and all I'm doing is just going back and forth, and you can see we've just smoothed that transition between the tail and the back leg. So you need to understand that sculpting will only have an effect when clicking the mouse and moving it. And then with the smooth tool, you can think of this action kind of being similar to using sandpaper and wood, just smoothing out the surfaces. Now, if you wanted to stay in the 3D view and you wanted to change your tools or settings, rather than going into the form, going back and forth all the time, you can make use of the many shortcut keys that we have available. Okay, so to switch between different tools, you'll see each tool is numbered. Okay, this one, number 2 is the Smudge Tool, number 3 is Deposit, 4 is Remove, 5 is the Undo brush, and 6 is the Twiddle view. And so doing that whilst we're in the 3D view, we simply press 1 for smooth, 2 to smudge, 3 to deposit, 4 to remove, 5 to undo, and then you can go into 6 to go back into the Twiddle view. You can also look at altering the diameter and strength settings from within the 3D view as well when you're using any of the model, the sculpting editing tools. So if we go back into number 1, then if we wanted to increase the diameter, I could use the right arrow key and I'll increase that. I can use the left arrow key to decrease that. I can use the up arrow key to increase the strength, and I can use the down arrow key to decrease the strength. I can also use the scroller on my mouse wheel if you had one, and so scrolling away increases the diameter, scrolling towards yourself decreases that diameter, and then if you hold down shift whilst using the scroller, that will increase the strength, and then scrolling towards yourself, holding down shift will decrease that strength as well. So there is lots of different options for us to control the use of the different tools whilst remaining within the 3D view. So now we're going to look at blending in all of the edges of our model using the smooth tool. Okay, so we're just going to increase the diameter, just make that around 73, and I'm just going to increase that strength to around 40. Okay, so something like that. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to take that and we're just going to go around our model, and I'm just clicking everywhere, just dragging back and forth, just try and blend some of those areas in like so. And I don't want to go into too much detail on the internal areas, we'll come back to that later, but generally we just want to just soften some of these harsh lines that we've got, blend those two together over here on the back there, bring that over to the shoulder, and I'm literally just going back and forth, that's all we're doing, over to the shoulder, into the neck area, and then we could just go around the head. I don't want to touch the head too much, we'll come back to this in a little bit more detail. Okay, so underneath here we can just smooth that area out and then come down over into the paws and over to the shoulder over here. Just soften that ever so slightly. We might want to look at decreasing the strength, so make that 30, and we'll just start to smooth out these areas here. That's going into the actual body itself. So we can see that these settings have really worked quite well to soften all of the edges of the model. And so at this stage I think it would be wise for me to save the brush settings that we've got for the smooth tool here as a preset that we can then use at a later date. And I know that these settings will apply the same effects on similar models, whether that be on this model or in similar modeling sessions. So we're going to do that. So we're going to add in a new preset. So we need to give that a name. So we're just going to call this one Edge Finish, like so. And then we can simply go ahead and press OK. We can now see that that's been added to our presets list. And so let's say in the future I was sculpting a dog, for instance, I could come in here select this smooth edge finish preset, and then the software will switch all of the settings to what we've got here that's currently saved for that preset, so I can use that in a different session, and it will always be saved here unless I use this option here to remove the actual preset itself. So let's just go back into the body here. So we're going to look at just increasing our diameter here. So we're going to go with quite a large brush, so around 100. We're also going to look at increasing our strength there as well. So we'll make that around 50, and then we're just going to look at pushing this up. Okay, so we're just trying to get rid of that kind of harsh line that we've got in there, just really try and just smooth that out. And so using the larger brush, we're actually making quite subtle changes there. Okay, and again we're just going to kind of smooth that over here, just going back and forth like so. Okay, so doing that, and then just underneath here. Okay, so it's starting to look pretty good. Now, sculpting is something that you really get a feel for, and it does require quite a lot of practice to become pretty proficient with it. Now, in this case, I'm actually using a mouse to sculpt the lioness, but if you were really serious about sculpting, then I'd highly recommend using a pen and tablet, as this gives you much more control over your wrist when manipulating the material within sculpt mode. So now we're going to look at the effects of using the Smudge Tool, where the Smudge Tool can drag material from high areas to low and low to high, kind of like virtual clay. We can pull it and we can push it back, which is really good for detailed areas. We're going to look at this in the tail and in the paws. And so we're going to zoom in on to the tail. So to do that, first off, we need to get into the twiddle mode. Okay, so to zoom in, you can use the scroller of your mouse. To scroll away from you, that will zoom in. To scroll towards you, that will zoom out. Okay, and then to pan your view, you can press both the left and the right mouse keys, which you can pan that across. And then we can just zoom in, something like that. Okay, so we're going to go into the Smudge Tool. So I'm going to press number 2 on my keyboard, and that's going to put me into smudge mode. And then we're just going to look at really reducing that diameter there, because it's a lot, it's very big. Okay, so we want to go somewhere around 30. That seems pretty good. The strength here, we're just going to increase our strength. We're going to make that a little bit higher there, so around 50, and we'll go with the smoothness of around 75. Okay, and all we're going to do is we're just going to click and drag, and you can see that that's just pushing that material in. You can see what I mean by it looks like virtual clay, and then we can just push it back out again. So now we're pushing from high to low areas, and then again you can push back from low to high to really cut in there, and then pull that back to bring that in, and you can see we're getting some real good definition here. Okay, so kind of like what we've got there. And just to finish that area, we could just apply a very gentle smooth. I want to just decrease that strength there and just soften that area like so. Okay, so I'm happy with what we've got there. So let's just use this option here to zoom active view to our drawing limits, so we can take a look at that as a whole. So now we're going to do the same for the paws. Okay, so again, let's use number 6 to go into twiddle mode. Another way to pan is you can just press Control and your left mouse key like so, and then we can just zoom in using the scroller. Okay, and then here we could go back into the Smudge Tool, so back into the smudge there, and then we can just simply pull that material in like so. You can see we're really creating the definition of the paws there. And we can just increase that diameter and just pull that back, and we can just pull this one back, okay, like so, just pushing backwards and forwards to create the definition there. Just create that, make that brush a little bit smaller whilst we push that in again, and then we can just increase that brush. We can look at just dragging that down again. Okay, so that's not too bad. We'll just use the Twiddle Tool and just zoom out to take a look. Okay, happy with that. And then we'll move over to the paw over here. So zooming in, back into the smudge tool. Okay, again, we just want to decrease that diameter, and we just want to really push that pore up there, creating that definition for each one of those parts. And then we're just simply just going to drag that back down. Okay, so we want to increase the diameter of the brush there whilst we're dragging down. Okay, so we're just creating that pore effect, and again we might want to just decrease the diameter, and again just push up to create a little bit more definition, push up to create a little bit more definition over here, and then again we could look at increasing the diameter, maybe just knock down the strength a little whilst we pull that back. So put the strength down to around 30, and then we can just push that down like so, push this down, round that off a little bit, push that up until you're happy with it. And you can do as little or as much sculpting as you want to, and it's a very subjective matter, and it's all dependent on how you like the look of the part. So let's just put that into twiddle mode, and we'll just use this option here to zoom active view to our drawing limits so we can take a look at this as a whole. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with this smudging that we've done there. Now at any stage we can use this option here to keep our part, and it's basically, it saves the changes that we've made whilst we're in sculpt mode, which can be very handy as you essentially have a safety net to fall back on. So we're going to do that. We're going to press keep just to keep our changes. The software is going to revert back to this stage should we want to go back to that stage in the future. For example, let's say we drastically ruin our lioness by doing something crazy like this. Well, if we go in and we use the option to discard, we'll have a warning where the software's warning that all our changes will be lost. Do you really want to discard these changes since you started sculpting or performed the last keep changes? Okay, so we want to go back to the last kept changes. So we're going to press yes, and it will remove all of that we've just done there to ruin our lioness model. However, it's still got all of those changes that we've made to the model so far. So it's a good habit to use that keep option just to create safety points throughout your sculpting projects. Right, and so now we're going to look at smudging to blend in the legs into the body and the shoulder into the body as well. So we're going to go into the smudge tool, so number 2, we're just going to increase our diameter. Okay, so we're going to go with quite a large diameter here. Okay, so something around 180, and then in terms of our strength, we're going to keep that at 30, so quite a low strength, and all we're going to do is just push that upwards. Okay, and you can see that we're just making those kind of subtle changes there because we're using the larger brush. And if we just go back and forth, you can see that we're creating the nice transition between all of those parts. Okay, so I'm just going to bring that down and just bring that over like so. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're just going to look at just decreasing that strength a little bit more. So let's make that 20, and we'll just kind of go back and forth over there, and then we'll just bring that in over here like so, push that out. Okay, so something like that. And then over here we're just going to bring the shoulder right up. Okay, and we just want to really blend that right in to the body. So again, just going back and forth in there like so. Just push that up. Okay, so I'm starting to like the changes that we've got there. Then we can come over here as well into this shape and try and blend that into the body, and over here at the bottom. I think that's looking pretty good. So now we're going to focus on the head area here. So let's go into the Twiddle tool. We're just going to zoom in and then we're just going to pan our view across so it's in the center focus of our screen. And we're going to look at smudging out all of these creases, and this has been created from when we've used the Create Shape tool with the very strange vector that we used to create that. So we're going to look at smudging out all of those creases. So we're going to go into the Smudge tool. Okay, so we're going to really reduce the diameter of our brush there. So we're going to bring that right down using the left arrow keys somewhere around 55, and then the strength we'll just keep that at 34. Might just want to actually decrease that a little and maybe increase the diameter of our brush to around 60, and then it's just simply a case of just going back and forth and just smudging out those creases. And you can see straight away we've already managed to reduce some of those there, and it's looking a lot smoother. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to look at pushing the snout area here. So just going to bring that right down. So just want to try and make quite a strong shape here. So we're just going to really just pull that down and then just push that back up there. Okay, and the same for the nose. Let's just pull that down and we're just going to push that across like so. Okay, so it's looking okay. Might want to apply a little bit of smoothness there just to knock off the kind of flat look that we've got. So we're just going to just give that a little bit of a smooth over here. Okay, and then we'll just go back into the Smudge tool. And then we could look at creating a strong jawline here. So we could look at just dragging material down like that, bring that over. Again, I'm just pulling that over there and pushing that over there. Then we can just push that back. Okay, if you wanted to undo, again, we can use Control Z again. I'm just going to decrease the diameter here, and we just want to really kind of just cut in there just to emphasize that jawline. And then using a larger brush, we're just going to bring that back down there like that. Okay, so something like that looks okay. And again, we could look at using the Smooth tool just to soften that up a bit so it's not so harsh in those areas. And then again, go back into the smudge, whereby we can just smudge that back out. Okay, so you can see it's really starting to come together here. Again, let's just go with a large brush and see if we can put some more definition on the snout area. And then what we'll do is we'll come over and we'll try and just apply a little bit more definition on the cheeks. Okay, and then over to the brow there. Just push that right over like so. I'm just doing lots of little stroke motions here just to try and get the correct shape. Okay, so just push that back a little bit and then push that forward again. Then what we'll do is we'll go into the Smooth tool. I'm just going to knock down the diameter there. I'm just going to smooth in that area here. Okay, so it's not looking too bad. Might want to just blend this area together, and then what we could do using the Smudge tool is we could just increase that diameter, just knock down on the strength ever so slightly, just kind of push that over into kind of the neck area over here. Okay, so it's not looking too bad. So what I could do is we could look at adding in an eye. So we could look at using the Composite tool here. So we could just, using the brush here, we can get a good idea of what the size would be. And then we can simply just up the strength if we wanted to, or decrease it. Maybe 50 might be too much. So we're just going to decrease this to around 38, and then we're just going to click, and I'm just going to keep clicking until we start to see that eye coming through there. Okay, so something like that. Okay, so you can see that, and then we might want to just smudge that just to flatten that off a little bit. So smudging that in, and you can see we've got the eye there. So I'm happy with how that looks. So just a little bit more of a smudge, and we're starting to get a lot more definition in there. Okay, so for the ear, we just want to give that a little bit more definition. So we're going to go into the remove tool this time. And here we're just going to really reduce that strength down to around 30 here. And then our diameter, we could just look at increasing that somewhere maybe around 30 would do there. And then we can simply just go in and we can just kind of hollow out some material for the ear. So here we could do something like this, and then we could come over here and create something like that. And then it's just a case of us using the smudge tools to just kind of clear that up and just really tidy that up so it looks more like an ear. We can just kind of emphasize some areas, really push that in like so. And we just keep going back and forth, just trying to just really kind of manipulate that shape. Okay, so we'll just move that over, something like that. I want to push that over as well. We're just going to create this kind of very strange inner ear shape by just pulling and pushing our smudge tool. Okay, then we want to maybe push that out towards the outer ear here. Then we want to push this up. So again, we could look at increasing our strength. So we're just going to use the up arrow key in this case, and we'll just look at pushing that right up there. And then we'll just push that down, and we'll go into this area here and push that up as well, like so. Might want to go back into the remove tool just to remove a little bit more material here, a little bit there, just to make that a little bit deeper, and then back into the smudge tool, and again we can just go in and just push away at that material. And so this really is a deal of practice makes perfect. Okay, so the more that you do this sort of thing, the better and the easier it's going to get. Okay, so I might want to go into the smooth tool and just go in and just kind of smooth over that area over here. I think that's too much. I may have removed some vital information there, so I'm just going to use the undo option. I'll actually go into the smudge tool and just kind of smudge away at that instead, just trying to push that up. I might want to just increase the strength, maybe increase the diameter, just push that over there. I might just want to push that down again, just to really kind of cut in there to create the kind of the fold of the ear. Okay, and then we just drag that over so we've got the edge of the ear in place, and we can push that up over here, push that over there, and it's not looking too bad. It's just a matter of just keep pushing and sculpting until you are happy with the end result. So here we could just go with a little bit of a light smooth over in some of those areas until you are happy with the way that that part looked. Okay, so we'll just smooth that out a little bit, and then just maybe just reduce the strength a little bit of the smooth. So just bring that down to around 15 just to soften some of those things out. Okay, so we'll just press F6 on the keyboard to fit our view to our screen so we can take a look at the overall model. Okay, so it's not looking too bad. What I might do now is just go over with the smooth tool, just up the diameter, just very low strength, and just kind of just smooth over some of those areas like so. And then we could just go over the top again, and then maybe look at some of those internal details. So back into pan, and we'll just zoom in over here, and then into number 1 for the smooth, and we're just going to just carefully smooth out some of those details like so. So we're still hinting at the kind of the muscle areas and that sort of thing, but we're not removing too much either. Okay, and then over here, back into the smooth, and then we'll just soften this over here, follow that down, smooth that again. Then again, let's use this option here to zoom active view to our drawing limits. And we'll just go in, we'll just maybe soften a bit of the ear, just underneath over here. And that's looking pretty good. Okay, so I think I'm happy at this stage. So what I'll do is go ahead and I'll press OK, and then that will bring that into our job. So that really completes the sculpting, and you could go on. This is very much an iterative process and is very subjective too. And so it's just a case of continuing to sculpt until you're happy with the way that it looks. So at this stage, I think it's good to go ahead and save our model, and then you can access that from the project folder. So let's go to File, Save As, and then in our project folder, we're just going to call this one Lioness 3D Modeling.